The following video is one in a series on spiritual resilience training, a non-religious view of personal values and their dynamics with others. The contents reflect a variety of principles and practices of systems theory and relational counseling for team building and family resilience. Although the series is intended to support Army Corps values, each video also encourages the viewer to reflect on their current prominent values in specific situations and to consider what values may be more appropriate to means and results that are honorable and helpful with others. Chaplain Dillard initiates creating and posting these videos. Their contents and YouTube's linked videos do not necessarily reflect specific beliefs, practices, requirements, or endorsements of the Department of Defense, its subordinate organizations, or other groups with which Chaplain Dillard is affiliated.
Welcome back. Today we're going to wrap up our three-part series on competing values. If you haven't seen at least the first video, I'd encourage you to go back and watch that. It covers some basics of why we seem to have values that compete with others and where that comes from and why that's important for us to understand. And then last week we looked at what wrong can look like. This week we're going to look at what right can look like. Not necessarily the exact way that it would go or should go, but some ways that it could go when we try to climb for common values or look toward common values, as the picture will depict here in just a moment. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start building from the bottom to kind of picture climbing toward those common values, and we'll just take a look at what could happen. First, if you remember the last couple of weeks, you remember that I was valuing perfectionism and recognition. What I could do is begin to relook those two values for their worth and their context. Now, if you remember, I have all the values highlighted in gold or yellow to show that they may be solid gold. They may be something I need to live or die for. They might be unrefined gold, meaning I need to work at them a little bit, or maybe they're gold plated. They have some value, but not as much worth as I'm currently giving them. They might even be fool's gold, and I need to give them up because I'm just wasting my time putting time and attention into something that really isn't that valuable. So the very first thing I can do is to look at their value. What is their worth? And I think most of us would probably agree that perfectionism is not a good value. There's nothing in this life that we can do that is absolutely perfect. It's just not. So I need to get rid of that value and begin to substitute something else that makes more sense. The other thing I can do is look at context. And recognition is important. We need feedback to know how we're doing. We need to know where we stand with other people, particularly those who we work with closely, especially family and close friends, where we're supposed to have more intimate relationships of trust and respect and common goals in the short term and the long term. But context is king oftentimes. And do I really want to seek recognition in my job? I probably need to be looking more for that at home, and I'll touch on that later, not in an unhealthy sense. But it's probably not something that I want to discern my personal worth at work. So the context may not be appropriate. As I begin to do that, probably my family and close friends may begin to notice my self-awareness. They'll see that I'm not working on autopilot as much to just demand or beg for recognition and be so just strung out on wanting everything to be perfect. They'll notice some changes in me. They won't be quite sure what that's about. But anytime we start to be more self-aware, those who know us well realize something in us is changing, or we're considering making a change, and that will draw their attention. Secondly, I could trade my perfectionism for excellence and my recognition for feedback. Perfectionism and excellence are certainly related. Excellence is probably more realistic. It's probably more appropriate. Because if I shoot for perfectionism, I'm always going to disappoint myself and others. If I shoot for excellence, that's more realistic, that's more appropriate, that's something that I can achieve. In the same way, if I trade recognition for feedback, then it's not all about tell me something good about me. It's tell me the truth. Tell me what I need to hear so that I can work with you and respond to you in ways that are appropriate for our shared goals, and not just so I can feel good about myself. See, that's how that's more helpful to mutual relationships. Now, when I begin to do that, my family and close friends will certainly notice these helpful changes in me. If I truly begin to exchange perfection for excellence, they're going to see that I have more realistic standards for myself and for others. That's going to go a lot better in my close relationships. And if I don't want so much recognition, hey, everybody take a look at me, but I want feedback, that begins to show respect for other people. Let me hear from you. Tell me how you experience me so that together we can have a better relationship to work toward common goals. That's much better than seeking recognition. As I implied already, I can listen for recognition at home. Not recognition so that I can be in the limelight, hey, look how great I am, check me out, or please tell me that I'm good so I don't feel bad about myself, but to listen for recognition. What are they in fact saying about me? Are they saying, hey Dad, you need to spend a little less time watching TV and a little more time listening to your kids, or I sure wish that you would help me in the kitchen instead of just telling me that you don't like what you see in the kitchen. So to listen for recognition is the beginning of transitioning for feedback, not demanding it, not needing it, not being in that needy mindset, but really listening to what they're truly saying. If I do that, I need to make sure that I'm not needy or demanding, because if it's something that I already want recognition, there's a chance that I want it for some unhealthy reasons, something like recognition. And it could be out of neediness, a poor self-esteem. It could be demanding out of a lot of pride. But I need to make sure that when I'm listening for their recognition, I'm just taking whatever they give. They might recognize me as, you're not nearly as wise as you think you are, or you believe that you are a self-controlled, calm person, but you really kind of grit your teeth when you don't get to go first at dinner, or get to pick the TV show, or get to pick where we go out for fun time. So I can't be demanding, I can't be needy. I need to receive whatever they want to tell me, verbally or otherwise. Now, all that is before I've ever met with my boss. And if I didn't say that already, we're following up on the previous two videos of me having a meeting with my boss, and truly competing values. I want recognition and I want perfectionism, but my boss wants information on a project I'm doing. He wants to know what is yet to be done, and he wants that information so that he can lead well. And those things can be truly conflicting. If I'm going to be a perfectionist, I can't give him information about what I've not yet done or what I've failed at, because that goes against me getting recognition. If I want my recognition, that can go against his leadership, because then the focus is on the missions that he has or she has, rather than on telling me how great I am. So those are truly competing values. Now, everything we've looked at so far is before that meeting, before we ever sit down, or I sit down with him and give him this report. So kind of building up from the ground of preparing for that spiritually and mentally and emotionally and relationally, here's how that meeting could go positively because of these aforementioned things that I may have done. I can reflect on the goodness of my boss's value, wanting information so that he can be a proper leader for his or her people. Those are good things. Doesn't every leader need information so they can lead well? Even if that information paints me in a bad light, that the project that's due next week is not on a smooth glide path, that I've got some things to do, that I'm not progressing as quickly as I believe I should, or maybe as fast as my boss believes I should, that's still a good thing for him to value that information. For him or her to lead well is a good goal. And I just need to humble myself and agree with that, because I am here for my boss's success, and I need to be helpful in that relationship. So if I begin to see those as good values, this also could happen. My boss and others may see or may not see that I am more open than before. Now, this is important to say. Just because I'm beginning to do the right thing doesn't mean I will immediately get recognition for it. That my demeanor is more open, that my ears are more open, that my heart and mind are more open to how I can help them may or may not be recognized by my boss and others in the room. That's okay. If I realize that it's a good goal to want feedback instead of recognition, excellence instead of perfection, even if I don't get immediate rewards for that, I need to stick to what is now a better goal than something that might have been just gold-plated or fool's gold before. I can also give them the information that they need for their leadership and get the feedback that I need for my excellence. The only way I'm going to grow is if I tell them the truth so they can give me the feedback on how I'm doing and what I need to do next. I can try to whitewash it and spit shine it and divert it and other things, and I can try to make myself look good in the room, but that's not really going to help me grow in excellence. It's a lie. It's a fable. I need accurate feedback from my boss because he or she is the one who sets the priorities. So even though that might be uncomfortable for me, it's still working toward better values, better goals, and doing that together with my boss. Now, when I do that, my boss is going to address my shortfalls and provide more specific direction for me, and I need that. Again, it may be uncomfortable for me to have them address my shortfalls. Why didn't you do that? What did you do instead? What do you need? They might be upset with me. Depending on my boss's demeanor, any number of things, that might be especially uncomfortable. But it's still moving in a good direction because, again, unless I give them the truth, true information, I won't get proper feedback for me to grow in excellence and for them to be able to grow in their leadership of their mission. So this is still a good thing, still climbing higher to common goals. Lastly, I could offer possible values for mutual benefit to my boss, such as mutual feedback back and forth for my greater discernment of their priorities. Not feedback just for the sake of going back and forth. My boss is my superior. I'm going to listen a lot more than I talk. But there needs to be feedback both ways. He needs to receive what I have to say, not as correction or guidance to him, but to have a dialogue so that he can stay informed or she can stay informed to make the decisions they need to make as the leader of the organization. Or if we can translate these roles to a family, for the leadership of the family or a social team or whatever. This works in any number of venues. So I can offer those additional or different values so that we can go to an even higher level. And when I do that, my boss will probably clarify their priorities, which will lead to my discernment, which will also lead toward their more effective leadership. So all of these things can work toward more mutual goals, higher goals that are better than a tug of war, if you remember last week's video, of going back and forth. This is working together toward common goals and common values. Again, this can be applied in any number of venues, family, social, work, or other. The main thing is to realize that a tug of war is a lose-lose, but working together is a win-win. Hope you find that helpful. Tune in next week. We will look at an entirely different subject and probably another mini-series to break it up in more digestible chunks. And I hope you'll join us then.
At the release date of this video, I am stationed with Research Development and Engineering Command, RDECOM, at Aberdeen Proving Ground, Maryland. Because the majority of our personnel are in this area, I spend most of my time here. I do, however, travel to our distant units based on command priorities and budget. I place these videos on YouTube for broad visibility to Army personnel and their families, but I hope the videos will be helpful to others too. If you are assigned to RDECOM and want to request specific topics by video, training on site or by VTC, or confidential counseling on site or by secure webcam, you can contact me at jeffrey.d.dillard.mil@mail.mil.